So perfect. Again, everyone, welcome to today's Business Empowered workshop, Protecting Your Business, HR, and Insurance Compliance, sponsored by our members, 360 HR Solutions and Plageman Agency, American Family Insurance. I'm excited to share a few quick announcements before we dive into today's workshop. Um, we do have another event coming up today at 1 p.m. It's Downstate Resources for LGBTQ business owners. So if you live downstate or know an LGBTQ entrepreneur or organization that should be a partner to us, we encourage you to invite them to join us today at 1 p.m. Also, we have some events coming up in March, which I'll share with you all in the post-event email. But we have a new member orientation coming up. So if you are a new member, thinking about membership, or just want to get an overview of member benefits, we hope that you'll join us at that time. Next month, we're also hosting a LGBTBE Now What workshop. So if your business is 51% or more LGBTQ owned, managed, and controlled, we'd love to help you get connected with this certification that will allow you to use it as a tool as you're going after contracts with corporate and government entities. This year is our 25th anniversary, so we have a number of exciting things going on. I hope that you'll also join us on March 9th as we host our monthly Mix and Mingle. This is our monthly premier networking event. You'll have the chance to continue networking with awesome folks like Michael and learning about our 25th anniversary history and celebration at this event as well. A lot of great things happening and a lot of great resources to offer. Again, also including our LGBTQ Biz Bootcamp, which again, I'll provide some information later in our post-wrap email. Again, today, we'll go ahead and dive on into today's main portion of the workshop. Again, if you've not already introduced yourself in the chat section, please feel free to do so. Drop your name, company name, drop those website links or LinkedIn links as well. Then also maybe let us know an HR or insurance risk or question that you're already thinking about, and we can try to address those in today's conversation. So again, huge thank you to both of the sponsors today, Liu Montsho, who is our own HR partner here at the Chamber, as well as Michael Plageman, who is our insurance partner here at the Chamber as well. So excited that both of our partners are able to provide some excellent content here for you today. So with that, I will go ahead and kick it over to Liu, who is also our business, our small business honoree of the year for 2019, which was the last time we were able to host that gala in person. So Liu, thank you for your partnership, and I'm excited to turn it over to you.
Awesome, and thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jeremy. I am super happy to be here, excited that so many people are interested in the topic. So this adds a great diversion to my day of fielding employee complaints, because that's usually what my day looks like all day long. So I'm glad to be with you. What we'll be talking a little bit about over the next 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes, are some of the costlier employment practices mistakes that small businesses make. One of the biggest challenges that we have with small businesses that we consult with is they're first having the understanding that HR practices are something that they actually need. Sometimes there is the perception that human resources is a kind of function, business function, that is only applicable to organizations that are of a certain size. And that can be a really big landmine that small businesses can step on, primarily because it's smaller businesses that are less able usually to field the damage that can occur as a result of an employment-related lawsuit. Just to give you a little bit of some perspective on this, does everyone see my screen okay? I just want to make sure. Awesome. Okay. Illinois, which is a very litigious state, I must say, in the world of employment-based lawsuits, in Illinois, the average number of days to get an employment claim result is 318. That's on average for small businesses. So that's the better part of a year spent in time, energy, and effort dealing with an employee-based lawsuit. And then the average settlement cost for those that actually move to that level is $160,000. And that's not a small piece of change, if you know what I'm talking about. So there are lots of steps. That's average. I mean, some are above. So that is a number that should strike some dread in the hearts of entrepreneurs and small business folks everywhere. The idea is, how do we insulate ourselves against this kind of financial hit? And luckily, today you'll be able to take away from our time together some ways that you can mitigate the risk of working with the lovely people that bring so much, that contribute so much to our organizations, but in some ways can be a potential risk or liability in instances like this. So we're going to walk through briefly, and of course, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. That would be great. So we're going to walk through some some of the more common employment-based mistakes that small businesses can make. And if you can imagine, one of the first, and what we see most often in my field, is the, I like to call it the internet-based cookie-cutter employee handbook, right? We all know that we need an employee handbook, and sometimes it's just easier to grab that template that might be offered for free. Or if we have friends who are also small business people, hey, let me grab your handbook, let me change up some names, and then now, ta-da, I have an employee handbook. The problem with that is that I'm sure you know that your business is unique. Your processes, your functions, and the ways in which you expect people to interact in your workplace is going to differ from a whole lot of other businesses out there. So by giving out a generic handbook, you really kind of cut your legs out from under you, and you don't have the ability to address the unique workplace situations that may arise in your workplace that need guidance and guidelines that you can give out to your folks. So those gaping holes in the handbook, you would want those to come to your attention prior, right, to an instance or an occurrence that might wind you up in arbitration or litigation. So you definitely want a handbook that is uniquely designed for your particular workplace experience. So that's one of the bigger ones. This kind of goes hand in hand with that, and that's a failure to include an at-will employment disclaimer inside your handbook. Some of us know that Illinois is an at-will state. There isn't the impression of a contract, an employment contract, being given by the issuance of a handbook. However, you want to make sure that that language is actually included in your handbook, because there can be ways in which an employee may interpret the handbook to mean that there is some kind of contractual relationship going on. So we want to be very, very clear that that's expressed, so that in the event that that working relationship is terminated, an employee doesn't feel as if, or the terminated employee doesn't feel as if there's been some sort of breach of contract that you now have to address, again, with your time and your money to clear up. So having that expressly spelled out is a huge boost to you as a potential employer. This is one, okay, here's another mistake, policies that are either too specific or too broad. One moment, I think I'm seeing a flash of a chat question. Can you elaborate on the at-will implicant can be fired at any time? I sure can. Let me back up to that real quick. Thank you so much, David. So at-will essentially means that the employer has the right to terminate an employee at any time and for any reason. And I want to add an asterisk next to that. Because a lot of people stop there. Illinois is at will. I can fire you at any time for any reason. I want to say this, except illegal ones. This is why it's super important that you have workplace policies and handbooks in place, because you cannot fire at will if an employee alleges that you have fired them for a reason that violates the law, right? Fire me because I was the oldest person in the room, or I think this person fired me because of my LGBT status. You run the risk. This is why documentation is so important. You run the risk if you just fire at will without documentation of your reasons why. You do put yourself in a situation where you have to then defend your reasons, and of course that can be rather expensive if you cannot prove that your reasons for firing were based on conduct and performance rather than an illegal reason based on someone's protected class status. I hope that answered your question. But at will generally means at any time the employee has the ability to leave. So there isn't a contractual obligation. That employee has the ability to leave. Preferably they give us 2 weeks notice, right? But they do have the ability to leave when they're ready to leave. And then we also have the ability to have them leave when we're ready for them to leave. As an HR professional, we always caution that we want to make sure that they're leaving for reasons that are defensible, for just cause, if you are terminating that employment involuntarily. And that's to avoid the ghosts. That's what I call it, the ghost of employees past, where you now have to see them at an unemployment hearing if you feel like they're not eligible to receive unemployment, or an unlawful termination hearing. And we're going to jump over here to policies that are either too specific or too broad. We tend to see policies around employee discipline. When we talk about policies that are too specific, it usually is around the disciplinary actions that occur. Some companies will have automatic triggers. If you do this, it's automatically that. We try really, really hard to implement with our clients a progressive discipline practice, right? The lowest level of discipline to correct the behavioral actions that we're seeing that we don't want to see anymore. So those tailored specific triggers inside your employee handbook are ones that would need to be revisited to make sure that you're not locking yourself into practices that might later be overturned in arbitration. And then ones that are too broad, some policies just aren't specific enough and leave the employee a lot of latitude to wiggle around and out of them. So we want to make sure that the policies are specific enough so that employees understand what the expectations are and then can meet them. I think I see one quick question. Okay. I thought there was a question here. Okay. Any questions about those broad, too specific or too broad policies? Okay. There's one that just came up with a client of ours, not having a social media use policy, right? Or having one that doesn't address the changes in law around social media use. There is the ability for you as an employer to monitor social media use, particularly of your employees, particularly around their mentions of where they work and what the workplace environment or the workplace activities are. And there is the ability to also take disciplinary action in the event that certain language or actions are occurring that violate company policy. So you want to make sure that your social media policy is up to date. We see the biggest challenges with this around harassment, where someone has invited someone to friend them on a social media platform, and then unwanted conversation or pictures are taking place. So even though that is someone's private Facebook page or private social media space, there are obligations as an employer that you have to ensure that your employees are not being harassed by other employees in the virtual world. So your policy needs to speak very specifically, because the ground is still moving on that. I wish I could tell you that there is a definitive answer, but things have wildly changed just in the last 2 years. And I will also say this, since we are on the Zoom platform, now that working from home is so much more of a phenomenon and the workplace has expanded exponentially, we also want to make sure that our policies are current around conduct in the virtual meeting spaces that we are occupying, whether it's Zoom, whether it's GoToMeeting, or anywhere else that we are meeting as a company, as a team. We want to make sure that our policies speak to what constitutes professional conduct in those spaces as well. This goes to wardrobe and attire. We've seen some interesting things, and even things in the background. So again, shout out to those of you who have lovely backgrounds, both real and virtual, that are appropriate for workplace interactions. I appreciate that very much. Anti-harassment policy, we want to make sure that our anti-harassment policies are in effect, and that there is an accompanying procedural outlay that lets folks know what to do in the instance that they feel that they are the victims of harassment. One of the big gaps that we see is people organizations have an anti-harassment policy. We have a zero tolerance policy, and that's a wonderful announcement. But then there is nothing spelled out in terms of what happens in the event that a harassment occurs. What are the steps that are taken? What are the things that you need to do as the employee in the event that you feel harassed, right? That is often missing. So a complete anti-harassment policy that includes procedure is what our recommendations are. So we want to revisit our policies to ensure that they are ones that are usable and not just a checkbox. Yeah, we don't do harassment here. Another landmine is a lack of an internal grievance process. I know that we like to think that our workplace is the best workplace ever, and none of our employees or staff would ever have the need to feel aggrieved. So none of you guys on the line, of course. But for those other employers that are out there that may have employees that would need some sort of remedy or redress for a workplace situation that is making them feel either anxious, harassed, overwhelmed, whatever the case may be, it is really a strong recommendation that you have developed an internal grievance process. So if that's an open door policy, let people know that that exists, who to contact in the event that they have workplace issues. The reason why this protects you is because they do have recourse outside of your organization. And once they go to a third party organization or a third party remedy, meaning the labor board, the EEOC, or wherever they may go, that automatically turns up the heat and will require more of you as an employer. So this does a couple of things by having that internal process. One, it shows your people that you are concerned about the feedback that they may be given, both positive and the not so positive. And that always creates a great working climate to know that there's an open door policy if I'm having issues. Two, it shows an outside agency, like the state of Illinois, for instance, who might be conducting an investigation. It shows them that you as an employer are doing your due diligence to ensure that folks have a process in place. And that can really bring those fees, right? Any sort of damages that might be awarded, it can bring that down. In the event that you do have an employee handbook, something that we see missing often from an employee's file is the signed acknowledgement form that received it. Now, I don't know about you, but if I can find and wiggle my way out of some kind of responsibility as an employee for my underperformance or my actions, I'm going to default to I didn't know. Hey, nobody told me. I would have done the right thing, but Ken never told me that that was what I was supposed to do. One of the ways that we can say, yeah, you did, is to be able to go to the file, pull the record, and say, is this your signature? That is a highly protective mechanism that is so simple to do, but we see missing in a lot of the circumstances. Yeah, I gave my handbook, Liu. Yeah, you want to see my handbook? Yeah, I want to see your handbook, but I also want to see the signed acknowledgement form. You got that? Frequently it's gone. So in the event that you have employees and you have presented them with handbooks, circle back and make sure that you've got a signed acknowledgement form. If you don't, no problem, no worries. Print one up real quick, send it out to them, have them sign it, scan it, send it back to you. And then this is important, keep a record, right? You want to make sure that you are able to reach for the receipts when the time calls for it. Okay, we don't want to conduct our own workplace investigations. Let me look at my time. And I'll wrap this up really quick. We don't want to conduct our own workplace investigations. I don't care. I don't know how many. I don't know how many murder she wrote episodes you saw, how many Columbo episodes you've seen. I'm just going to say this. It's just better to have an outside firm do it. It doesn't have to be us. It could be anyone. But you want to have the appearance of objectivity as often as you can. It removes that as a possible stick to beat you with if the employee alleges that there is favoritism or discrimination against them. He never liked me anyway, so I'm not surprised that the findings turned out of his investigation against me. Improper FLSA classification. Some small businesses like to throw people onto salaries so they don't have to pay overtime. None of you guys, of course. But what I will say is this is a common lawsuit. I should have been paid a certain kind of way. I wasn't. They worked me to death 80 hours a week, and I'm on salary, and I shouldn't be. If there are not, if you cannot pass the tests that are outlined in the FLSA, then you're going to be liable then for back pay and possible damages. So we want to make sure that we have properly classified the people who can earn overtime and the people who cannot. Same with W-2 employees versus contractors. There are tests to determine whether or not the person working for you actually is a contractor, or if they should be classified as an employee. I myself was on the receiving end of one of these when I was classified as a contractor, and I got a wonderful check for $8,000 in the mail. I long left the company, had been gone for 4 years, had no idea that there was a lawsuit, but somebody filed one for us. And then it turned into a class action, and then lo and behold, I got a bonus, and I took a trip to Paris behind that. So I'm just letting y'all know that can be very expensive. Because if one employee alleges it or one contractor alleges it, they open up the books on la-di-da-di everybody. So you want to make sure that you have this down pat. So what should you do now that I've scared you all to death with all of these landmines? Here's what you should do. If you don't have an employee handbook, please, please, please create one. That is vitally important, and then do the maintenance on it. Only 18% of businesses review and update their policies annually. Remember, I said that things change constantly in employment law. We want to make sure that our practices and our policies are aligned properly. And then 3, protect your business. Go on offense, consult an HR professional about the thing, so that you can get your systems in place, level set. And then that way you can get some practices in place that you can affordably do yourself, and then outsource those things that may need to be done every now and then to someone who really is a professional and understands where your risks lie. And then get a good defense. Your general liability insurance as an employer is not going to cover you in an employee-based lawsuit. So EPLI insurance, that is employment practice liability insurance, is an actual thing. And I will leave that to the insurance professional on the line to talk to you guys about in short order. So that's pretty much all I have today. I hope I didn't run through that too quickly, and I want to open up for any questions if we have them. Okay, if there aren't any right now, but if you think of them later.
Hey, I have a question for you.
Okay, go right ahead.
How you doing? This is David Kaczynski with Chicago Psych Therapy. So for that extra letter for the handbook, if it wasn't attached, so our handbook, it's being it's actually on a wiki that we have for the company. So as far as like having them do a signature for that, we can have a signature page just recognizes, does that signature page just recognize like where the handbook's located on the wiki, and then that's sort of how it gets attached? And then, yeah.
It can be as a standalone document. There have been some companies that will do then that e-signature, form as an upload to their cloud or what have you. But yeah, you absolutely want a standalone document that then you can place either real life or virtually into their employment record, their employee file.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I just was kind of, when you said that, it popped in my head as to like, oh, okay, how do I make the connection between the two? Like, they're just signing a sheet of paper, and by the way, the handbook exists. So I just want to make sure that but usually it's always like within the book, but I'm trying to avoid creating any type of paper or anything. So no, thank you.
Most definitely, because a lot of folks are moving to their HRIS, that's Human Resources Information System. A lot are moving to an all electronic format, and that is fine. You do want that standalone document though, and not as the last page of the book, because then how do you separate if it's an electronic file, how do you separate that one out without just printing out the one page and then scanning again and uploading it? So you may as well just have it be a standalone document in your cloud-based HRIS.
Well, thank you, Liu.
Yeah, so the email is here. In case other questions pop into your head later on today, shoot them to us at hrinfo@360hrsolutionsinc.com. Thank you so much, and I will turn this over to Michael.
Awesome. Thank you so much. What a wonderful presentation. And you know what I love the most is that as I'm, hearing her talk, and we've prepared for this conference today, I continue to tell her that we're going to do some work together, because, we want to make sure that as we're growing and adding more team members, that we have the right protections in place for our team, and, do the right thing for our employees and our business. I'm the insurance agent on the call here today. I also want to say thank you to Jeremy and the LGBT Chamber, and the board members, David Tucci and Colin Gorman, that are here today as well. So thank you guys. But insurance is meant to help take care of something when it happens. But every business owner, every homeowner would rather not live through a process of having to have a claim, having to have something damaged in your business or your home, or a car accident. The same thing with your business. So I want to take a few minutes to walk you through some of the potential risks for a business, including your employees, and making sure that you're bulletproof against risk. If there's something I can do for you or for my customers, I want to make sure that they know exactly where they are with any potential risk scenario and how we can do that. So again, I'm Michael Plageman with American Family Insurance. My pronouns are he, him. I'm grateful to be here today and want to share some of the things that I've learned in my business and want to, I don't really want to talk about products. I just want to get some ideas talking to you about things that could be a topic on your mind. So whenever I'm working with a business, one of the first things we do is we want to understand what's the structure of the business. We want to know, what kind of protections are in place for the owners of the business. How does that trickle down to the types of protections you have for your employees? And, what does that mean in terms of having the right insurance and protecting your assets? So if you're an individual who owns a business, we want to make sure that you have an understanding of the way in which your business could be liable for an incident along with you personally, and some of the other structures of businesses provide some better protection. So part of the time when we initially have the conversation with the customer, we're bringing in someone to help them incorporate or to at least start doing some planning around protecting their business that way. But we look at insurance as risk management. So you can avoid something, you can accept it, you can transfer it or reduce it. So that's the backbone of any process we do when we're working with a business to understand what are the things that they're willing to survive, what are the things they're willing to risk, what are the ways in which we can help protect them so that they don't have a situation arise that could affect their ownership or their business continuity. So when we go through this process, it's important that we understand the structure of the business. Who are the other professionals that they use? What are the procedures and policies? So what Liu is talking about, speaks very clearly into the structure of a business and the processes you have in place to protect yourself. We tend to believe that the policies and structures that you have in place to protect your people and your business are the same things that will hopefully avoid you from having a claim. But if something does happen, we can help you with it. So what are some of the business disruptions that could happen in your business? Physical damage to your facility, loss of inventory, acute threats. That's my way of saying terrorism or active shooter or COVID-19, cybersecurity, the loss of an owner, the change in ownership that can happen, that can affect the longevity or the continuity of your business. And then what could happen to your customers as a result of your business? What could be your fault for someone having a slip and fall or product liability? It could be from food contamination. It could be from the misuse of a product or training. The ways in which you give professional advice to somebody, right? So it's not just a widget, but it's also the intellectual component of sharing ideas and training. So even though you might come to me for a business policy for a new coffee shop, we're going to talk about all the different potential threats for a business. And whether you work with me or with another company, these are the things that you want to look at. And so everybody here probably has business insurance of some kind, but what we want to do is maybe create some ideas for you to go back and test your policy. See what you have and see what would be something that you're missing. So. A lot of us in the chamber work with are either startups or they work with other startup businesses. We're networking, we're trying to grow our businesses, we're trying to grow the chamber membership. And so, as we think about people that we're going to refer business to, one of the things that we think about is, are you referable? And if you don't have business insurance, if you're not protecting your potential client, how could I possibly refer you to do work with the people that I trust? So, part of, being credible in the business environment is, knowing your business, knowing what you do that really well, but also protecting yourself, your intellectual capital, your employees, your assets, all of those things. So I want to talk about what are the questions that come to mind when you think about your business risk. And so are you going to be covered? That's one of the number one questions we get asked all the time. How is this covered? What if this happens? What if that happens? And is your business going to survive some of those things? So Liu talked about the average cost of an employment practice claim being $160,000. So, if I had a claim against my business for $160,000, if I didn't have the right protections in place, where am I going to come up with $160,000? Am I going to have to liquidate? Am I going to have to sell my business? Am I going to have 10 months of $16,000 payments? Somewhere down the line, you've got to figure that out. And that's the reason why we talk about understanding the risk. So the reality is I think about the insurance industry and risk management similar to the learning and education system that we grow up in, that we go through our elementary, high school, college years, and we learn math every year. We learn over and over and over. And as a business owner, sometimes we have to slowly chip away at our business at the things that are going to take care of us. And so maybe the baseline needs are making sure that you can rent a location, making sure that your employees are covered if they're injured on the job. But then what are the other things that can happen over time? And so we always want to help our customers and our community be able to do that. So my personal charge in life is to help people become homeowners and business owners. I want to know that if they do achieve their dreams, that's what our company's slogan is to dream fearlessly. So if you are able to achieve your dreams, we want to protect those. But being part of the chamber, we also can help support other people that want to get into business. And I've seen some incredible businesses come out of the chamber's incubator processes and things. So that's pretty cool. And I think we're all like-minded in that way, where we have some members that come from big companies, some from little companies, some are owners, some are team members. So we want to work to help grow and thrive the businesses of our community. So what are some of the impacts of risk in your business? So you could lose staff. How much does it cost to hire and train somebody? When you take 6 months out of your business, when you're a small business owner and you're training somebody, what's the opportunity cost of that time if you're not able to retain somebody or they leave and there's an issue with the employment plan. So the risk of, and your business can also affect your business credit and the credit position of the company. So if you're having to leverage credit to survive something that's happened that wasn't insured, that could affect your ability to pull money on your line of credit in a few years or in a few months. And so as we've seen a major pandemic and global impact of that pandemic, we've seen a lot of businesses affected in ways that nobody planned for. So these things can have an impact on your team, your creditors, of course, your customers. If you're not referable and you're not able to fix something that was done as a mistake or bad coaching, bad advice, then you could lose your customers, your referrals, your online reviews. Nobody likes a bad online review, is that right? So, we do not want that to happen. So, it'll happen sometimes, but you have to have 1 million people to give you a 5-star review. And then when that one person gives you a 1-star review, it's not that big of a deal. But if that one person happens to be somebody that you accidentally burn down their house while you're changing a light bulb, that's not going to go over very well. So we want to make sure that we work in tandem with our business owners to help support the growth of their business and to take good care of their customers. And then, some businesses are forced to bring in capital from outside to sustain potential loss. So you may need additional investors and people involved in your business that don't know your business. So I have a small business I work with. They're in the design field, and one of the designers is married. The other designer has a teenage child. And so if something happens to one of them, what's going to happen to their business? How are they going to be able to continue without suddenly being in business with the beneficiary of the owner's part of the company? So we look at that as a way to also provide continuity planning for the business to be able to allot for that. So what do our employees do for us? So I have a team member on here. Ken and I used to work together, and now he's my go-to guy for health insurance. And the reality is that your employees are your biggest asset. So we have the ability to do a lot of things, but without their knowledge and their vision, their security, their safety, being able to accommodate their needs, and their ability to control and help you develop maybe a lead or a funnel of business, the relationships they have in the community. Those things are all really, really important for us to think about. So we look at employees as one of your biggest assets. That's the reason why we look at things like employment practices liability. That's the reason why we look at workers' comp insurance, to make sure that if somebody is injured on the job, if they have a disease, from working in an unsafe environment, that those things are going to be taken care of by that business owner. The reality is, if I get in a car accident and it's my fault, I know that I'm responsible for what happens. Same thing with your business. If something happens and it's your fault, the business owner is ultimately responsible for that, whether you have insurance or not. So back to that first equation we had, you can assume all the risk. Some of the risk is required to have insurance, right? So, is that really what you want to do? Do you want to absorb those risks when they happen? So we want to protect your employees. So there's employment practices liability. If somebody feels they've been sued for sexual harassment, discrimination, a lot of the ways in which Liu talked about protecting the employees, that could be the thing that's between the business surviving and not surviving. Workers' compensation. So workers' compensation is for an employee, and it's also for the owner of the business. So for my business, I'm obviously the insurance agent, and we have a team. If my team members are injured in the office, it's pretty unlikely, but it could still happen. Filing cabinet could fall on somebody. They could, be injured going out to visit somebody's house and taking pictures. But the same thing can happen to a business owner. And many health insurance products are not going to cover you for accidents that happen in the workplace. And a lot of business owners don't realize that. And they have workers' compensation for their employees. But if you're injured on the job and you go to the hospital, one of the first things they ask you, is this related to a car accident or an accident, around the community? So, a lot of times those answers go back to your health insurance company, and they might deny coverage. So you could be stuck with a big hospital bill, the cost of the x-ray, a cast being put on for somebody falling while they're out on the job. So I think it's important for the business owner to consider that as well. So I worked with a realtor recently who didn't have I'm hiring his first employee. Of course, we can cover the employee, but you also have the ability to cover yourself, so that if you're injured on the job, you're going to be taken care of. So employee benefits and key employee. If you have a top salesperson, that is the person who's driving 70% of your revenue, that's someone that you can protect with key employee insurance. and employee benefits for your team as well. So we talked about illness, disease, virus, terrorism. I don't know if you know this or not, but you can buy insurance these days for active shooters. So if you have an active shooter in the area and your business is shut down from things like that, you can actually insure against that. COVID is not something that you can insure against. It's not a loss of use. It's not a loss of revenue that is insurable. A virus is not. And that is something that is in the legislature of most states all across the country, trying to figure out whether or not that should be covered in the future. Because right now it's not, and insurance is a very highly regulated business. So anything like that has to go through each individual state to be approved. Here's some more things on the risk of ownership. What if I make a mistake? How do I save my reputation? That goes back to me fixing somebody's front door and accidentally burning down the house, or making a recommendation on buying a house, and the realtor does the form wrong. So I have a realtor who did a form wrong recently, and the owner of the property asked them to pay an $8,000 loss of revenue from them because it was a mistake on their part. They should know what form to use. Well, you have to have errors and omissions insurance as a business professional to protect yourself with that. And then how do I replace my inventory? A business is going to have equipment in the facility. Maybe you have equipment that you take out to locations. You have food, you have widgets. Those are the things that we want to make sure to insure for you. And then of course, injury on the job, that can be something that happened to the business owner too. I definitely want to take care of my employees, but I don't know about you, but as a business owner, I still have to be involved in my business. It's not running completely on its own, not yet. So, we want to make sure you can do that. And then if something happens and you're in business with somebody, who's going to take over in your absence? Who's going to be the person that can do that? And we're able to work with customers with business owners to protect the partners of a business, so that you know exactly who is going to be the owner of the business if one of the owners dies. You know exactly how they're going to be compensated. And that's the more complex side of our business I really love to do. And then, so if we do a buy-sell agreement, it's actually based on a life insurance product, and you have to have an attorney involved, you have to have an accountant involved, you have to understand what's the business worth, how are you going to agree on the price for your business. So I am working with a business owner, two business owners that are in a partnership. And, if they were to buy today after 2020, they would only get, maybe 40 cents on the dollar for what they would have gotten 2 years ago. But in a few years from now, they're going to be back to that cost analysis, so that they can understand what the business is worth. And that's why you want to have those things set in stone before something happens, so that there's no negotiation, there's no delay on timing to be able to pay a beneficiary. So I'm not married, but if I was married and something happened to my business, I want to make sure that, my spouse is going to be taken care of, and that they suddenly don't have to learn how to be an insurance agent, or how to run a car wash, or how to run a therapy center, or, whatever. And oftentimes, even in a divorce, it's important for business owners to have those plans in place. So it's not just about selling insurance, but it's also just making the person aware that they have HR processes, they have business processes that they have to understand. How are those things going to impact their business? And so that's part of our initial analysis, to work with the client to make sure that they understand, those particular risks. And we want you to be, protected from outside influence or interference. Like I mentioned, you have the ability to purchase at an agreed upon price, and you could have full ownership. The downside is if we don't do it, then you don't have those in place. So the reality is that we want to look at risk from left to right, from A to Z, from 1 to 100, everything in between, so that whether you choose to protect it or not, that's up to you. But we want you to know all the potential ways in which you are opened up for liability. Liability in a world that is a contentious world. Employees are contentious. Your condo association is contentious, right? And the businesses where you do work, they are going to hold you liable for the things that we do. And so that's important that we're able to, to check all those boxes. And when I started my business, which has been about 5 years ago, I wanted to grow as fast as possible and make it seem as though we're really big, even in our first year. And so we gave a lot of money to different, organizations and charities to sponsor and get our name out there. But we also put in place, some business processes that will help us survive, whether we're, a 2-person company or a 10-person company, or 100-person. But for me, I only want to get to about 10 people. So, those are the things that we do, and those are the risks that you take in life and in business. So I haven't been following the chat, but I'm going to open it up and see if there's any questions. Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Michael, David Teachy here.
Hi, David.
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Good to see you.
Good to be seen. I know in your experience, my experience as well, but it's kind of funny. You talked about key employee insurance. It's so critical to a business. What would you say a good guess would be on how many businesses start out with their 2 or 3 partners, and regardless of their setup, they don't have that in place? They talk about it, but do they actually have it?
No, they don't. I mean, they talk about it for so long. Any kind of planning like that can be, just put off. I will take care of that next year. So the number of businesses that have that level of detail in their planning, I think it's pretty low. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I know. No, I do. And it's funny. I've worked on 2 cases last year in Wisconsin, actually. One kind of fell through due to COVID because they weren't producing anything. And the other one just happened to fall through. But a lot of people don't have that in place. And I think the thing that people don't realize with their business, that if you leave that business, the cost to train, the cost to get that person back on track, and, customers too, they may want to do business with that person. It's really, really important. And it is done with life insurance, obviously, which is something both Michael and I do. But yeah, I agree. Not many people.
I have a business owner who's a restaurateur, and we were also able to help him with key person insurance for his chef, because his chef is what brought people into the restaurant. If that chef happens to perish, he would probably need 6 months or a year to bring somebody in and get the recognition. So that's really good, David. Thank you. Donna, what's your question?
Hey, Michael, I just wanted to know, do we insure for the actual or the projected?
So, and for which
E&O.
For E&O, so you want to go at the higher end. So, your business may be, in a decline, or, because of COVID or anything else. But you want to insure for growth, for sure, especially, if you're going to seek out larger clients and, be able to be protected with that. So that's one of those that I've escalated it from $1 million to $2 million to $5 million over the years. That's what I've done personally. So I love it when people ask, what do you suggest? And I tell them what I do personally. Because I'm just a regular guy who puts his pants on and buys insurance too. So thank you, Donna.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions for either one of us as we're wrapping up here today?
Pretty informative. That was pretty cool.
Thank you.
Both
all
of
for
you
being
were
here.
absolutely wonderful. Both of you are fabulous.
That Atwill to work is so funny with salespeople in Illinois. I mean, because you got nothing. You really don't have anything. And I've seen it over the years until you bring in other factors like you did. And they're very difficult to prove as well, but it's happened.
Well, this is informative. And I know there will be at least one referral pass for me to Lou to help with my employee handbook to redo that. So it's funny how we're sometimes partnered up with others to help businesses, and then we can also help each other. So we really appreciate you being here. I hope that 2021 is off to a good start for you and your business. I hope it can be a year of growth. I hope it can be a year of strength for you as an owner, and for your commitment to the community and the LGBT community. I love that. So any closing remarks, Leo?
Let me unmute myself. None at all. I just wanted to add that the minute that my professional liability insurance cancels, I'm on my way to you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for your participation today. Take care, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.